Great. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Tonight will be the March 4th, 2021 meeting of the East Bridgewater Finance Committee. We are back in person. Finally, nice to see faces. And we'll go ahead and kick the meeting off at 6:33, I think that said. All right, we have one guest, or actually two guests tonight that will be speaking. So first on the agenda is Chief Paul O'Brien and Deputy Chief Mike Jenkins. Come up and talk to us about a transfer request. Good evening.
It's been so long, I forgot what you guys look like. We had put in for a capital project to replace our firearms. We didn't spend the taser money from last year, which was $21,300. Total cost for this capital project would have been $43,358.66, but when we minus the $21,033, it came out to $22,325. Our firearms are approximately 13 to 17 years old.
Yep.
You cannot get parts from anymore. When we are at the range qualifying, they are failing. If we order the guns today, we're still looking at 6 months to a year to get them due to COVID and all the restrictions. So we were looking to see if we could get a transfer, as Laura had brought up, to go ahead forward and purchase these firearms.
So hopefully everyone's had a chance to kind of read through the materials. And I know actually somebody had asked me questions. Was it you, Dan? Did somebody text me? Was it Kevin? Might have been you. No, somebody asked me a question. I can't remember who it was. But I think Chief kind of talked about it a little bit. Normally we'd run it through the process, but I think I saw on the news just tonight about how parts and shipping are an absolute nightmare. So I think in this instance, the sooner we get an order placed, the better. And I think that's why Brian and myself thought that a transfer would probably be the better way to go in this regard.
So is there no need for the tasers that you had the funds for?
We didn't replace a body last year, so I had the money in my budget, so I used that. And then I had written you a capital letter that I did not need it, but Phyllis said just keep it in your budget, so now we could use it for this.
We'll have to do an article in the special town meeting to repurpose the taser money, but that's not an obstacle.
And, no, go right ahead.
Make a motion to transfer from the reserve fund sum of $22,325.66 to account 01/2/10/5215870 as requested by the chief.
Okay.
Dan, all right, any additional discussion? No, and so Chief, if we do this, you're able to place the order, you're looking at about a 6-month lead time?
That's what they told us, yes.
And you've got to, once you get that, then you have to initiate all new training and
Correct.
everything. So it'll be a substantial amount of time. Great. Okay, any other questions? No? All right.
So,
all
I'm
those.
sorry, I do have one question.
Yep, go right ahead.
So you're gonna, now that you're going to order these new ones, and I know we talked about last night where you're gonna have a whole new set, so then it's gonna be almost like in 5 years, you're gonna put another order in, or how long do you think?
No, the life expectancy is between 10 and 15 years.
Prior replacement we did was about 12 to 14 years, so we get, the average, like 12 to 15 years is the industry average.
And these will all match, so that everything will be the same, and
Every
Identical.
officer will have the same gun.
thank you.
And I think that was an important part, that they all be consistent so that your officers are all trained on the same piece of equipment.
If one gun fails,
There's a backup.
or runs out of ammo, there's ammo with the other officer that'll match.
That's also the industry standard unless you're like a small town or, county somewhere, but.
Great. Any other questions? No, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Thank you.
That would be 601. Wonderful. All right, so we'll go ahead and get this signed. And Brian will have it tomorrow morning, or tonight, actually. We're good to go.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
And
very
then,
much.
so one other quick question that I wanted to bring up. So we had, obviously, when we had the police department in for the budget discussions, we had a lot of talk about staffing, and we wanted to kind of continue that conversation a little bit. So my understanding is that you're going to be approaching the Board of Selectmen on Monday night to kind of talk about staffing and hopefully increasing that staffing number.
Correct. We
Okay.
just lost another officer to another agency, so we're down another body.
So I think we all heard in that presentation kind of And we've all heard, certainly over the last couple of years, that the numbers, have not been able to get back up to where they, a comfortable number. And I think the Abington report more than highlighted that for us. So what I think we talked about doing is that you're going to go to the board. If the board, I would assume, would be supportive of that, then we would maybe just ask that they resubmit their request to us for FY22 budget. And that it would, take that long and then some anyway. And then we can, of course, have more discussion about it, in the interim.
So the big difference there was the calls to check on folks, right? Why do we have so many more than the other towns around?
I don't know what the other towns
Because
have.
if that was backed out, there wouldn't be such a dramatic difference.
But I think it was also the number of bodies. So calls were one statistic, but number of officers was, the bigger statistic in my mind, too. That for the size town we have, the population, we were still at that, way at the bottom of that list.
And we can't speak for other towns as well, but we're pretty, with the technology and the data, so we can do our data analysis, crime analysis, we're pretty on top of it. Whether the other towns, they log all their calls in properly, we can't speak on their behalf, but we're pretty on top of that. Like the business checks, the house checks, that went up dramatically due to COVID, because we've increased that, going through the 55-plus communities 5 times a day, and, in the other particular areas that need, the house checks or the business checks. So we're doing probably 15, up to 10 to 15 more of those checks a day, just on the business and the house checks, and the certain areas of 55-plus, and the businesses at night and the overnights, et cetera. So that's gone up dramatically because we're tracking it properly.
All right, well, I mean, what if everyone calls for that service? I mean, at some point, you can't check every single house,
They don't
right?
call for the service. This is something the chief, we implemented, especially with the pandemic going on. Initially, when the pandemic came out, the 55-plus communities were rarely concerned because, for one, it affected that age group more than anything.
Yes.
And so, there was more concern in our 55-plus communities in addition to our other communities, but we put more of a presence in those communities in addition to that. It's a part of their patrol. We increased it, and the feedback we've gotten from the 55-plus communities and the other communities seeing our cars a lot more frequently has been very positive.
The business checks we've been doing forever.
Right, but I think last time we spoke, you said you had like 7,000 calls in the first 6 months.
It was about 7,000 calls.
That's what he said, yeah.
So, I mean, so far, this January to now, we have 4,983 calls for service.
Total.
Since
Total.
last June.
No, since January.
So you get 4,000 calls a month, or 2 months?
Almost 3 months, yeah.
So what's how many calls a month do you get?
I didn't break it down that way. FY21 to date, since July 1st last year, we're at 19,225 calls. The year prior to that, we were at 16,663 calls. It's a 19.12% increase.
I mean, there's only like 13,000 people in this town, right? So everybody calls 1.5 times a year?
That's calls
Every
for
single
service.
man, woman, and
That's,
child?
that's public log. There's calls for service. That's motor vehicle accidents, that's walk-ins, that's license to carry.
There's a coyote in my backyard.
Anytime our officers are
Dispatched to go.
dispatched to go or walk-ins, LTCs alone, we're probably,
What's
the amount we're
LTC?
doing. License to carry applications, so when people come in for their appointments,
It takes an officer off the road, he has to process that.
we
Right.
track in every walk-in, every call for service. Every time our officers have to do something, report or react or do a call for service, we track everything.
If they check a business, I want it logged in, because if that business gets broken in, that'll help us cut our time frame down. Maybe there's a camera in the area and we know what to search for.
And I think the part that, we talked about a lot was how 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I can't remember the exact number of years, we were at that 25, 26, 27 bodies count, and that went down for various reasons, and you've never been able to get back up. So it's not like we've been at this down low growth, we've been getting up. We were up, we went down, and we're trying to get back to that normalized number, which doesn't even meet, I think you guys have told me that still doesn't even quite meet the standards.
It won't meet where we started at. no.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
the
I-
federal guidelines, it doesn't meet the federal guidelines
Right.
per capita.
So,
Chiefs, what's the realistic look at the talent pool right now? In other words, if you.
Right now, we have a phenomenal list right now. Yeah, they're all college grads, criminal justice majors, and they are just,
So if you were approved for these positions, you could actually get bodies to fill them relatively quickly, once academy and so forth was done.
correct.
All East Bridgewater residents.
They're all East Bridgewater residents, and they're fantastic.
Good to know. Okay.
So we're not looking for anything from the committee at this point. I think this is just we wanted to kind of bring it forward. They're going to go through their process. I think, and we can talk about it when we go through our budget later, but I think, just as a show of support, that we wanted to have that discussion. We're not asking for anything yet, obviously, until we get to the budget, but just to let you know that was happening on the board.
Right, but if you're down a guy, you automatically replace him, right?
Yeah.
Is that how it goes? Yeah, right.
We're down more than, but if going back to 1997 when I got on, and when the chief got on, I think 96, we were at 25, 26 guys. Right now, we're down,
We're at 21 right now.
21
with-
right now.
21, so it's gotta go
One of
up.
them's in the academy.
Yeah, so it gotta go up.
yeah.
Great.
If you compare it to the, our similar communities with the population and the demographics and the calls for service, we're way under compared to most.
Yeah, no, that sounds
And the
fine.
industry norm, we should be at like 28 if you do the federal standards and the comparisons.
Makes sense.
Great. Any other questions, comments? Great. All right. Well, good luck.
Great, thank you for your
Thank you
time.
all very much for your time tonight.
So I guess I'll start and get this signed, and we'll pass it around. I'm gonna have to put glasses on for this. What?
You're no signal.
Oh, it's okay, I just went to sleep. It's just me.
Okay.
Should I just get a quick recap of what they were?
You get
Talking about the
the gun,
yeah.
pistol.
Okay, so today
New pistols.
is,
And then they said another guy left. They came out in the email. And they said another patrolman left, so they gotta replace the new patrolman.
Did you get a copy of the request for the transfer from the reserve?
I had it in my email, so I saw that, so that's what they were talking about, and then they
You went to
shifted
the environmental,
into positions that need to be filled.
It's a great, it's a
That-
good law. It's unfortunate.
The one for
Very
weapons
bad. I
and
mean-
so forth.
Yep,
Yeah, so that's what we approved.
It's a
okay,
good guy that we
$2,000
lost.
transfer.
yeah. And then they were talking about positions that need to be filled too.
okay, so I'm just getting these signed, and we're gonna pass them around for signature.
Someone's very excited for her.
They love FinCom meetings.
Okay. All right. You wanna, and then we'll just pass it around. There's only 5 lines on the paper.
Oh, come on.
I'll ask Rebecca next time to put 7 on.
First
So
time
just
back, and this
whoever's
is what we're
last time,
working
who would
with?
last 2.
You actually only need the chairman's signature and, the vote recorded. That's all you really need to make it legal.
Oh, but we get so little excitement in our meetings,
I
so to
gotcha.
sign a piece of paper is exciting.
Sign the margin.
Initial here.
Just sign below. Okay, great. All right.
Here's it.
Spiffy.
I still won't be able to read it.
You're too close, right?
I don't, well, that, I'm doing the old, do I need glasses, do I not need glasses?
Yeah, isn't it cool?
I think I need a stronger prescription with
That's
mine.
CARES Act.
Well, and I
money, too.
just bought fancy ones that are like the blue light.
I didn't
Oh, yeah.
leave any
How does-
stone
bought 'em at
unturned.
Home
That was good.
So, now, fun times. Okay, so. Remind me before we finish, to pass these out, so I just don't want to. All right, so I thought what we'd do is literally just kind of do it the old-fashioned way and kind of go through. I've highlighted a bunch of lines that either I myself had questions, I had a couple questions come in from the committee. I'll be honest, I wished I had more questions from the committee, but I'm hoping that you've saved them all up and can ask them now. So I thought we'd just go through, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I had to like highlight a line because I forgot what the answer was. So I'm hoping that the liaison's gonna at least help me. And then we can put notes in. And basically, kind of the exercise tonight is, obviously, I don't think we're gonna be we're not in a position, obviously, we're not gonna be taking any votes. We don't have quite the bottom lines and everything, but I think it's go through line items we have questions on, departments we have questions on. We can either answer the questions and resolve them tonight, or we can ask for more information based on where we are. So I thought we'd start there. So literally, we can
Can you get rid of the page 1 on the page?
no, because it's actually built into the document.
Change the view.
Okay. Hey, look at that.
Now I gotta get small, though. Is that too small? Can you guys read it? I mean, I am gonna have to scroll over because it's got just too many columns.
Freeze the C then.
Oh, I do have it frozen already, so I can.
Excellent.
So, I like to be able to see everything though. I'm an everything kind of person. All right. So, actually I had, Brian, this is actually a question for you. So the first line item that I had a question in Selectmen was the clerical salaries, and it wasn't so much the amount as that we had a different amount between level funding and level services.
Yes.
And I couldn't remember what the answer was there.
I would cut hours.
Okay. And I know that was the case in a couple other.
Yeah, like I think the assessors department had
Yeah.
something similar.
Okay. And Brian, and actually, I already actually talked about this a little bit. Actually, Dan, I think you asked me this question on supplies computer.
So
Do you remember?
I did a little research on that, and in addition to the explanation I gave you, I've already spent year-to-date on that $8,300, so I'm already overspent in that line. So I'm making up for lost time there, Dan.
And even though we've done a lot of computers with CARES Act, that's not simply just computers. It
In this
tends to- it
particular
tends to be-
case, this is just one purchase, $8,300. So we would normally do replacement computers in an emergency basis out of that line, and like boards and servers and things of that nature. So I had been very successful at purchasing our computers out of the CARES Act, so I had not had an expense out of that line this year until the $8,300.
All right. I've highlighted our reserve fund line only because, obviously, it's not a question, but it's just an area that we will need to think long and hard about when we get to the end, when we need to potentially make some adjustments. Just as a reminder, we did bump that up to 250,000. We were at 225 last year. We've only, this is the first transfer we've done, I think.
Yes.
So this is the first transfer we've done. We know that there's a couple floating items that potentially might come our way at the end of the year, but I think this year, again, most likely because of the CARES Act money, has probably been a little bit of a godsend to us. So again, it could be an item that we have some flexibility with.
I think, were we at 250 last year and we bumped it down
Yeah.
last
Yes.
minute,
Yep,
right?
that's exactly what we did.
Trying to keep it as a percentage of the final budget,
Yeah.
Good idea,
And,
yeah.
where the committee is telling departments, budget correctly, and if you get into trouble, we're here to back you up. You gotta have the
We
ability.
gotta make sure we have that money to back them up.
So how much came through on the CARES Act all in?
2 million.
2 million, nice.
All right, so.
I asked for more money and I got it.
Good job.
We had a nice little stretch here. And actually, I'm glad you're here, Melissa. Dan, I think this was a line item you had asked about professional services, financial. And you're gonna have to forgive us because we all have really bad memories. And I think the question was that we hadn't spent the budgeted amount the last couple of years. Sorry, I know.
I have a whole bunch of different ones, I'm sorry, I'm blind to that.
Other expenses. I know, sorry.
Is that if we go out to bonds, Melissa?
Is that the bond one?
Yeah. and
Okay, that, Brian did tell me
We
that.
never know when we're gonna bond or how much, and like last 2 years, we did a ban which is less costly, but this year we do have
That's right.
we have the bond, we're rolling the bands into a bond, we have the 2 new items, the roof and the water, as well as we're refunding, or what I would call refinancing, the high school. So there'll be some hefty fees along with it. Although we will have a premium, we have to make sure we have enough to offset it.
Does that answer your question, Dan?
Yes.
Excellent. And Brian told me that this afternoon, and I already forgotten just the time frame I got here.
I feel like we always ask, like,
I feel
question
like
what
we
that
do,
line
I
item
feel like
is.
we do
Yeah.
too. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here, because I wanna commend Melissa, because I think she was like the one department that had like this really big, negative number next to her. That makes me a little nervous. And I don't usually ever say that, because I'm the conservative one in the group, but I worry that you are making it too tight. And again, we'll be here to back you up. But I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. And again, I think it was, you didn't have much wiggle room in the budget, but if we're all comfortable where everything was, I mean, you did take a $6,000 decrease.
That was for a service you're not using anymore.
That's
though,
because
wasn't
I
it?
changed
got
the
rid of that?
lockbox.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, okay.
And we don't have to pay for that anymore.
And computer supplies, because assuming you got new computers
We have,
through CARES Act.
everything's new.
It's brand new. All right,
Printers, new computers, so,
I will unhighlight them.
oh gosh, we should be really good.
Is this the one where the
Thanks for
postage is
calling,
gone,
Brian.
42,000?
What?
Is the postage line, I thought I saw,
Well, the postage line is
Is it
the
a-
entire town's postage.
But it's in its own, it's not in your budget.
No,
No, the
well,
town clerk, right? The clerk?
I paid for it. I budget it in somewhere.
Yeah, it's right down if
It's
you
in there.
scroll.
It's in
right
mine.
Bottom.
It's because
Yeah, it's a separate
I
line.
maintain the postage meter here. So everybody's postage, that nobody budgets it for postage.
Okay.
I do. I fill the machine and all that.
That covers all the departments?
Yeah, yeah. It's done, some towns, I had every department do it, even though I filled the machine, and I would give them a bill, and they would submit their annual postage, but it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, really.
In the last couple of years, I mean, we've been at 34. One year we went down to 29. I actually didn't look, Brian, on the report you just sent me. I don't know how we're doing this year, but
On the postage, you
we've been
mean?
pretty consistent, I
Well,
think, right?
yeah,
Okay.
not sure if it'll go up a little bit due to the mailing of ballots, but we did some reports and got some paperwork to try to get some of that back from the COVID money, so.
Melissa, will a second reference to professional services, legal, and tax title, will that be permanently gone? Was that not the one, if I remember correctly, on the Hanson
Well,
land specifically?
See, a treasurer has a tax title,
Yep.
and a collector has a tax title. So we had them in, they were always budgeting them twice,
Gotcha, yeah.
and I am the treasurer tax collector, so there wasn't really, the 2 lines aren't technically necessary.
Yeah, I think
We
you're
spent
seeing it a little
28,000 in
further up.
postage so far.
Was that posted?
We spent 28,000 with 13,000 to go.
Yeah, we're doing a lot more work this year than we did, when you transition a treasurer, you don't, I have to look at the cases and know what to tell the attorney. Yeah, go after that one, or don't do that, or what have you, and it takes you a little while, so it has taken me a little while to really grasp who's who and what's what in the tax title accounts. So we are doing a little more work this year, so. will
Hey,
be
I
spending-
unhighlighted your line, so I'm good. Any other
Stop
questions? I
talking
know.
then. When the lights go out, you stop talking.
Any other questions in that area before I go on? No? Excellent. Okay, IT, I actually highlighted IT because I know we had some conversation with Ryan, and Brian was actually going to speak with him today about some of the specifics, because we know there are a couple line items in there that that were budgeted just because an expense is going to be hitting in a couple of years, and we said, oh, we probably wouldn't do that this year, so we just wanted to have that conversation with him, so.
Because of the dollar amounts in particular, this is his way of telling us, I have to put this in next year and it's gonna look big. So I'm gonna write you a memo for the file so that I can say we told you so. So the Sophos Central Ransomware Protection line, which is 46,000, if I'm doing this right? No, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. 24,955?
Yep.
That's a zero. But it will be there next year. And
I'll
the,
zero it yet. I'm like, it's my copy, I can do it, I guess.
yeah.
I'm gonna delete it, okay.
And then if you go down to the very last expense, the manage engine desktop central annual maintenance, that 3,141 is a zero.
Will that also be there?
That'll be there next year and every year thereafter.
Okay. So,
School managed services, that's part of the offset with the salaries, is that correct?
I'm sorry, where are you, managed services?
School managed services is down.
They're gone.
And that's why we're,
No, we've transferred, anything school is on the school side of the
Oh, okay.
ledger now and off the town side.
okay,
So
so
they
the
picked it up
increase
in
in
theirs.
salaries, we're picking him up full-time?
We're picking them up full-time.
Okay,
We
I
had
couldn't
a,
remember.
yeah, we had an option of either splitting a break-fix guy or hiring Ryan full-time. Unfortunately, Hanson wasn't able to participate in that,
Yeah,
so we're moving forward with all Ryan all the time.
okay. Seems like he's doing a great job.
It's phenomenal.
great, so that was what, 31 and 3, so picked us up almost 35,000.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, so actually,
but he's very nervous, by the way. I told you. So we're not gonna.
we just won't reduce our reserve that much then, just in case. Okay, all right, in-town clerk's department. So we had a couple, one that we know we had some questions on, and another one, you know, I couldn't remember the answer on either. So department head salaries is kind of the one category where the finance committee kind of is a little more involved in making the recommendation because it's an elected official and it doesn't report up to anyone. It's an awful process in my mind. The process isn't good, but it is what it is right now until such a time as it becomes appointed, correct? So, you know, we've had, for those who have been on the board many years, this is not a new discussion, we've had it a million times. And a request for an increase came in this year at 12.33%. So, yeah. So what I asked Brian and his team to do, because I just don't feel it should be arbitrary, right? It shouldn't just be a subjective, arbitrary thing. We need to actually look at, you know, what should the salary be, you know, that type of thing. And I feel like it's been a little arbitrary in the past. So we did try to do a comp analysis. And we used not only, for those who have been around a while, George used to have a set of towns that were similar to East Bridgewater for using various metrics. So we took that list as well as, I think, Daniel, I think you helped me kind of create the list of kind of some of the other surrounding towns to use. And we did an analysis. So I'll actually, if you don't mind.
So who asked for the raise? Is this the clerk herself or himself?
Yes, she is the department head, yeah. So I'm not sure, and we don't have to resolve this tonight. This is more of just an informational discussion. But, you know, we at least have some information to look at. And this, I think, is going to also go into a bigger discussion we'll have a little later about salaries in general. But this one, because it's an elected official, does kind of fall into our arena right now. So, and of course, I thought of a couple other things that we probably should have had on this sheet after the fact, but I wasn't going to ask Rebecca to go back and do it again. So just to kind of go through this, obviously we have the towns and whether or not they're elected or appointed, the number of hours a week they work. I then normalize that to an FTE status, what their salary for those hours are, and then I took that and I normalized it to a full-time 40-hour-a-week position. Some of them get stipends, which you see in the kind of the comments, additional stipends column. So I took their, if they had stipends, and I added it to their salary so we could see what their all-in was, what their salary plus stipends was, whether or not they had benefits, the population of the town, and the number of voters in town. And then I added just a metric at the end, total salary per population. Not that that's an end-all be-all statistic. But I think it just gives us a look at what the other towns have. Now, a couple other things that somebody brought to my attention that we probably should have asked for is years in the position, I think would have been an important one, and certification would have been an important one also. But like I said, I wasn't going to ask them to go back and do it again. So, like I said, we don't have to take any action on this yet. You can take this, we can digest it a little bit. I also did some math down the bottom just to show just the math for you. So if it was, right now it's at 12.33 request, and then I just did the math breakdown of if it was a 3, 5, 7, or 10 randomly. And again, under the same columns with salary, and then what it would be normalized, and then salary plus stipend, just to see what it would look like.
The request doesn't look as high when you look at some of these towns, like with Abington and Whitman and stuff.
Yep.
there.
Look at Norton.
Yeah, so what's the ration, what is the town clerk, what's the reasoning for the double-digit raise?
I guess that she's looking at what these other people are being paid.
Well, there's that and the fact that the job substantially changed, particularly this year, and it will be forever.
Change how?
The extra balloting issues that occurred and the number of hours that she had to devote to that. Hi, how are you? They're downstairs in the other conference room.
But she stayed within her 35 hours doing that? Is that,
What's that?
she's done all this with staying within her 35 hours?
Oh, gosh,
though?
no.
She's probably sad.
She's way, her election time is, she beat me in hours. And yet, she's elected, so she could pick and choose, she could walk out, it doesn't matter. But she's
There's no hours
conscientious about the
reported.
job, and she was here all the time. And the liability for screwing up is huge. So there's a lot of responsibility placed upon her, a lot of lifting, shoving, bumping, and, and hours here. The extended voting hours, the Saturday voting hours, running to the post office and picking up those ballots frequently so that they could process them, staying very late in the evening, opening and processing the ballots, and you gotta do it with witnesses. It was a very difficult balloting season, and it's now forever.
Do they ever go get any volunteers to help out from the
They
town?
do.
They have volunteers,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, but the problem is she has to certify the election.
Yeah.
She has to be there all the time. So she can't say, I'm gonna take a dinner break, or she can't go home, or not come to work for an evening. She has to witness it.
You put it on
She has to be there,
camera,
so-
like we're on camera?
Sorry?
You can't put it on camera like we're on camera?
Nope. She has to witness it in person.
Really?
What is the 500 BOR? What is BOR?
Sorry?
What is the
500
BOR
What
stipend?
does BOR stand for?
Board of Registrars.
Board of Registrars.
Board of
I'm
Registrars,
sorry,
yeah.
okay.
That's okay, thank you.
Having
Took me a
trouble hearing.
second.
It must be the mask.
Oh my God.
I can't hear you, I have a mask on. I can't see.
My lips move.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like the city of Quincy, the person who's the clerk there has to look at every single ballot
She has
there?
delegated authority, she has people who are delegated or deputized to fill in different districts, but they cannot leave.
Right.
They have to stay.
So we can't get deputies?
Well, you have to pay them, I
you gotta pay
imagine,
'em.
right?
And she's doing the job, so do you want to pay her, or do you want to pay somebody else?
Pay a volunteer?
No volunteers, you have to be paid.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
So again, I don't think we have to, we don't have to take any action, we don't have to unless, but I think, and this is part of, I think, a bigger conversation that we have to have about salaries in general. I think I struggle with the arbitrary number. I struggle with a double-digit number, to your point. I struggle in a year, and this is a statement across the board, this is not necessarily just about this position. I struggle in a year of a global pandemic, there being raises at that amount at all, in a year that we're gonna have to, tighten up a little. So, but that being said,
And she has not gone for any certifications, is that
and has
correct?
no, and my
And she doesn't
understanding,
have any plan to, because she's going to retire in a few years? Does she have, she's going to
You get voted out?
she's going to finish this year and next year, or do you know?
She's running
She's
for
running
re-election, so
in
she'd have
April.
3 more years.
Okay. But still with no plans to go for the certification?
Yeah, I'm not sure at this point there'll be any advantage to her doing that.
When
no,
someone
she's gonna
runs,
get the
how is the
12,000.
salary set?
that's the problem, there is no process.
An elected official can, the only people who decide the elected official's salary is town meeting. So she could, even if you say, no, we're not gonna approve this, she could still stand at town meeting and change that number.
Right.
So, you know, obviously, she would like the support of the finance committee.
Right.
And recognizing, you know, the job has changed dramatically since she was first elected. And when we do, you know, evaluations of positions, yes, the COLA is there, but has the job changed? If I had to go out into the marketplace and hire somebody based on the new job description, what would you pay? Those are the issues that you have to balance as the finance committee. She's looking for some support. You know, you don't have to honor her request, you know, in its entirety. You could strike a compromise if you wish to, or she could still challenge you and go to the floor of town meeting. My suspicion would be that she does her job and she's popular enough and can get elected. She probably can get what she wants on the floor of town meeting, but she's asking for your support, and I think she's willing to accept a suggestion.
So we can either continue on with the conversation, or we can, again, we have still a lot of work to do on the budget, so we can table it till the next time. What is?
I think just get it under the same double digits. I mean, just the optics isn't, I mean, who knows, who gets a 12% raise? Like, I don't know anyone who gets a 12% raise.
Yeah.
I think we could have a whole meeting about salaries.
We absolutely,
So I think we should try to get through this and then have some sort of conversation about salaries. You know, you
Yep.
can go with if I gotta go out and hire somebody, but you don't have to run for the office.
Yep.
You know, we could make this 120,000, and we'll have a lot of people running for office.
That's right.
So,
and then is there any appetite, and unfortunately Peter left, is there any appetite for this to be to change it to an appointed position at some point versus an elected position?
tried that once.
Yeah. That would be up to town meeting, and,
Rebecca?
you know, it would eventually, has to go to town meeting and has to go.
Yeah.
So the answer would be that my concern is that the world has changed since the days of elected town clerks. And if you looked at the number of communities in Massachusetts are moving to an appointed town clerk, because the liability of screwing up is so high, and the longevity of that screw-up could be multiple decades. For example, if a town clerk fails to put in a marriage certificate, and the person gets married, lives a life, then goes to retire and has to get a certified marriage certificate, and then you find out it was never never done, that person has to sue the town has to lose in court, issue the marriage certificate, and pay his legal fees. And that could be how many years since the crime was committed? So consequently, you know, and if you make a mistake in voting, in addition to the bad press and the screwed up election, there's liability involved. So the world has changed since the original old-fashioned town clerk. And the job has become far more technical, far more demanding.
And does that therefore is why towns are going to an appointed versus, so again,
95% of these are elected.
Yeah, I was gonna say only two out of these are appointed.
You're
at this point,
gonna
yeah.
see a wave as they retire.
And they've got at least 20,000 voters, or a population of at least 20,000.
Well, I mean, ever since the Easton, you know, remember the controversy when the Easton town clerk didn't put in all the changes in the bylaw for, what was it, 10 years, Kevin? In the zoning bylaw, he didn't register for 10 years. They ended up firing the town clerk, they ended up firing the town administrator, never want that. And it was a ripple effect and of course, all those people who built houses under the wrong bylaws, there's a liability there. You're gonna see as the elected town clerks start to retire, they will be replaced by appointeds.
When you had appointed before, how long did that last for?
we didn't have.
appointed. We tried to change the bylaw at the time when we created the DPW and everything.
Yep.
What
And
was
it got
time
shot.
reference, Dave? Time reference,
Well, it had to be like 2007, 2006.
about 10, 15 years, yeah.
What was the reason for not, it just didn't pass at town floor?
It didn't pass at the ballot or at town, well, it passed in the ballot, because we did a ballot vote first. It was from the Government Review Study Committee, and then it went to town meeting, and it got shot down.
What would I mean, and this is kind of, for those of us who've been on, that kind of, when this whole thing started, was, to the question, how does the salary get set? And there is no good process, and that was the problem we ran into in this case. So how would it need to be initiated? Basically, somebody would just have to put an article in, or the board would need support.
You could change it, anyone could change
You
it
mean to
on
make
the
it
floor of
appointed?
town meeting.
Yeah,
Would
I
have
mean,
to
it's
go to
something-
town meeting.
yeah.
Somebody could stand up and say, I vote to amend the line for the town clerk, by X number of dollars, and it would be put to a vote.
And maybe that's something we should be thinking about for the end, for when she plans on retiring, and we make that change.
So-
I mean, I just think this is a rough process. And to Brian's point, I think, it's going in a different direction.
Let me ask you this, I don't see the difference in liability if it's somebody who's elected and they screw up, or somebody who's
Can't fire 'em.
appointed and they screw up.
Yeah.
Because you can have better qualifications if you're appointing a position.
Yeah,
So,
but if they do have to make the mistake.
Right, no,
The
yeah, that.
so what if they come in, they're elected, they come in and they're not great at their job? As an elected official, Brian could not do anything.
No, but we as a town, we have the
Recall
recall
position.
now.
You'd have to know, I mean, that's a
Well, I think that's the way, like in the federal government,
It
they
is,
have
but if you're not
the
doing your
political
job, someone's gonna
appointee,
hear about it.
or the elected is the top, the figurehead of the department, but then the people below are like career people who actually understand how the bureaucracy works, and they're the ones that get it done.
Not here. This is a working town clerk.
Well, maybe we could change it to be that way.
I mean, you could look at that. I mean, if you had some, I mean, the recall procedure that was adopted in town is extraordinarily cumbersome. And I would even think that it would be I look at it, I think it would be virtually impossible to do. It could be done, but it's going to be hard. The problem is the recall would occur after the boo-boo. In addition, there's no requirement if an elected officer of the town doesn't want to come to work, they only have to make a minimum number of hours, and they could take a vacation, they could take a day, they're not bound.
That's right, that's why you don't want to put day-to-day operations in
That's why we really want to go to
that.
an appointed, so you have clear.
Well, then we should appoint the
contract.
selectmen too then, right?
Well, I can't, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And it would be the town administrator or the board of selectmen who would do the appointing at that point.
That would be up to
It would be up to
when
how we
would it be
wrote
up
that?
to however you enable
Yeah.
the statute.
So that's a bigger, obviously, we got a little ahead of ourselves, but,
I think you should,
But-
sort of concentrate on
Yeah.
what's changed about the job that warrants this, and if you discover what's changed about the job, does it warrant this? Or what? Rather than going off into the tangents of, elected or appointed.
I'm gonna say we should table it, and look
we
at
can,
everyone's.
if everybody wants a little time to process, that is absolutely fine. I wanted to make sure everybody had this in hand, for, and, we're gonna have another meeting next week, so we can come back and certainly finish that conversation. Yeah, perfect, okay.
Laura, can we get that information that you were talking about earlier as well? Certification and the other piece, I mean, if it's not.
Oh, like how many years in the certification?
Yeah, I mean, I think.
I'd be taxing Brian's staff, but if Brian's willing to,
To do what?
the two pieces of information that we thought of afterwards
Yeah,
were
Longevity.
Could
Yeah.
you share that chart with me when you get a
Yep.
chance? Thank
years
you.
of experience and certification.
Yeah, that's no problem. We
Email
can
you.
add that on very easily.
Okay. Let me send an email to you and Rebecca.
I also appreciate your little chart at the bottom, thank you.
Brian,
Well,
what
why make you
would
do
the
that, Sarah,
Thorough.
value of benefits be?
Well, if she took the insurance and she doesn't.
Right, would be.
Okay,
Right.
that would
are
be
we
what,
talking?
another 12? How much value insurance for somebody the town side? Average 12 grand? 13 grand?
$1,000 a month or something like
Yeah,
that?
basically, I would say on the short side, yes. And she's very conscientious. She's here, she works a normal schedule, she doesn't leave early, she doesn't leave when it snows, And I'll tell you, She takes that election personally.
And this is where I, as a finance committee, struggle, because I don't want to be in a position to judge people. That's not my job. My job's to make sure that we have a balanced budget and that and this is where, this is the discomfort I have with this position falling kind of in this area, in this arena. Because I don't want us as a committee to be in that position. I don't think we should be. We don't have that. So I think we need to kind of, think about it, and again, we have to have the bigger discussion about salaries in general, but this is, I get it from the work side of it, but it's also the financial ability to pay it too. So, all right, so let's,
So just one last thing.
Yep.
From the standpoint of your column here, normal salary or normalized salary and stipends, that makes no inclusion of anything to do with benefits that are received, right?
none, no.
So that would
I
even-
don't typically when you see a comp analysis, benefits don't come into play
So I
at all.
mean, theoretically, then you're talking about,
Because you could pick benefits up tomorrow, and it wouldn't change anything. So in all comps, metrics, they do not include benefits.
unless they're available versus not available.
Right. And/or you'd, potentially be receiving a no benefit stipend or something
Yep.
that you would then have to back out, which I do not believe we have anymore. We used to have a stipend for no benefits, but we don't anymore, correct?
Well, we still have that $1,500 that's if you don't take the health insurance, certain employees would be entitled to the 15, depending upon the collective bargaining agreement
Yeah, I don't.
or whether they're under the personnel policy.
Okay. All right, any other fields we need to add, or that's good? Good, okay. All right, and then the other line I highlighted was, and this was a me, I couldn't remember the answer to the question, so I was hoping somebody else could. Ward, and Brian, maybe you even know the answer.
Increase in minimum wage.
This is actually a decrease in the wardens, though, and I think she decreased the warden line.
You have less elections this coming year.
Okay, so this is just strictly an election.
That'll go up and down depending upon the number of elections.
Although, we've been pretty consistent, 19, 19, 15, spent 17, 15,
Yep.
and
She's
we're going all the way down to 11? Okay,
she's been calculating. We have a very late election year coming
okay.
in.
All right,
Good.
But, this comes down to, she's actually looking as opposed to just putting in a number like, so she actually did what you asked and she's justifying.
okay. All right. I actually got the answer to this question, and this more so, Dave, I just highlighted this because this is, again, a salary, so I some of the key salaries that we already talked about, I'm just highlighting for myself to.
Which one is that?
Conservation Commission clerical, and this is a combination of increase of hours and
Right,
increased
I know
salary.
that.
Yep. Just, again, just for my own edification, I highlighted 2 lines. This is the salary line that we moved the position, so I wanted to kind of just keep it, because I keep screwing myself up. So the 2 lines that I have in yellow are just the switch from one department to the other. We actually moved that position out. Dan, you did have a question, though, on mapping services in the planning board, so I don't remember who planning liaison is. Dave, is that you?
Building. Building and planning.
Building and
Build
planning,
yeah.
yep. And this might have to be we have to get the answer to the question, but mapping services, I think, Dan, you were just saying they haven't spent any in the last couple of years, and we were just holding 1,000, they keep holding 1,000 in the account.
We'll update the GIS layers. That's where that money comes from.
Yeah, wasn't Ryan talking about that?
Sorry?
Wasn't Ryan involved with that somehow?
Yeah, we're doing a lot more work with the whole GIS system, but the money that's in the planning board is when we update a zoning rule, then you have to pay to have that
Yeah, to get it.
incorporated into the layers of GIS.
Right.
So you never know when you're gonna do that,
Yeah,
therefore you leave
just
it
be
alone.
prepared, right? No, that makes sense. Good thinking.
So this is a hold for potential
Software updates.
I can't even type now, gee.
We're all watching.
I know, right, huh? Okay, Zoning, and I think I answered my own question on this one, because I think this was simply a question of, we just had two different amounts between level funded and level services, so again, I am assuming this is an hours cut.
Hours cut, but it
Should we
really
have to go
depends
level
on how busy
funding?
they get. So, I mean, that number can go up, could go down. Because she's paid hourly and you get, it's on-demand services, if you will.
Okay, again, I highlighted, so this is one day we just were having a quick conversation about before. So, under facilities, there is a request in, for a salary increase there that again is in double digits. So, I know these were going to the personnel board.
Yes, which they did last night.
Okay.
So, John Haynes is requesting an increase for Brian Kiley's position, facilities manager. And he presented a few other towns just to compare at that point. He was trying to bring Brian up to, I guess, kind of like what we're doing with town clerk or what that's going on there. So,
And I think, and we don't probably, I mean, you guys didn't take action yet?
no,
that
last
correct?
night we tabled it because we asked for, so he provided us with Natick, Lynn, and some information on Brockton as to compare. So we've asked for some towns that might be more relatable to us.
Yeah.
But then also towns that have a facilities manager that works with the town and the school. So we're one of the few towns where our facilities manager does that. But we had questions on, like, some of the other towns requested required certifications and degrees in engineering, things like that. So we've tabled it and we're gonna come back and meet on it again.
Okay. So again, it kind of goes back to the whole, and again, so, it goes to the personnel board. It doesn't come to us for that specific, but obviously the budget component does come to us. And I keep saying we'll get to the salary conversation, but we keep getting hung up on it. So again,
Who actually approves that raise? Is that John? Is that the personnel
the
board?
personnel
Is
board.
that the
Personnel
selectmen?
board.
So whatever we say, they'll take it
well,
under
they can
advisement.
approve, they can approve the request, absolutely. We still need to make a recommendation on the budget.
Oh, I see.
So, as aggregate, right? I mean,
Right.
technically line item, but in the aggregate, we're gonna recommend the budget. So, if we feel a budget is too high, too low, too
Right.
medium, too whatever, we can make a recommendation on
Right,
that.
like you say, yeah, great, you get a raise, but you gotta cut somewhere else to make up for it.
And we tabled it because we hadn't met together either to look at the whole budget to see what we have to work with.
No, it makes
So-
sense, it's a good system.
Yeah, and again, this is again one of those areas that it's like a little wonky. One committee's doing one thing, another committee's, again, we can't say we can't look at it and we can't know about it, because we obviously need to
Right,
be looking at the big picture. And these salaries are a big part of that big picture.
right, so the bottom line,
Big part.
what's it go up? 8 point something?
13.67
No, not just him, I mean, like you said, the bottom line, that's what we're concerned about, right?
of the total
Of
budget.
that, where it says total personal services.
Well,
Yeah, that,
that's
how much-
everybody in the department.
I know, that's what I'm saying, though, but like if you if you're gonna have to cut somewhere else,
Or him and.
It would have
he
to
has
be
one
this-
part-
yeah.
He has one assistant, but it's, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, if they gave them that, and we, and we as a committee felt that
John Haynes is
a
looking
million
for-
$1,095,000 is too high, and we say, nope, $1 million is your max.
Right.
They have to cut. And if similar to the contracts, right? If a contract's already signed, but we say we can't afford this whole, but you gotta commit to that,
yeah,
you gotta take it out of this
We'll
bucket.
find somewhere else.
You know?
His whole facilities budget is actually flat with the raise, the salary increase.
Yeah, because they cut it all down, and that's how everybody's done it
Yeah.
in their budgets. They've taken and given the raises,
counteracted.
whether it's
Yeah.
contractual or other,
Yeah,
and then taken it from other line items, for the level funded only. If we're looking at level services, that's different.
He wanted to start the conversation, so I think John's looking for almost like kind of a guidance here too. He felt that he deserved more, but he just kind of wanted to start the conversation too, that this is what he's looking to do, so, I mean, he's got it in his budget, so if he, I guess if he can, he will, but kind of left it, we'll get.
I'd be curious.
See, but all of these also have long-term effects with retirement benefits.
Right.
Last 3 years, pay, percentage of that, et cetera, so it hangs with us for a while.
And one of the.
And especially if they're not close to retirement, obviously, you know.
And one of the, like, for example, the city of Lynn that he supplied us with, their salary was a minimum, or with additional qualifications, but it was $83,329 to $104,000 plus benefits. So last night I said I felt like he was kind of within that range, but again, we would discuss it again.
Well, this is not the city of Lynn, I mean, this is,
That was another conversation, yeah, that was another conversation.
I don't think.
So we're gonna get some kind of comparable towns.
Right.
And
And,
then-
you know, and not to like, I guess we can probably jump into the salary discussion because we keep talking about it. It's not even just the line item of salaries, right? Because to your point, Dave, there's so much other in those
Right.
contracts that aren't as clear in the budget line item. So whether it be longevity pay, whether it be, I don't even know, we talk about steps, lines, this payback, that stipend, whatever. We don't even have necessarily the detail and the breakout to that. So again, to your point, it's one component of a lot of components, I think, in some cases, in not all cases. And I think it does have a big, we're talking about it a lot, right? Because we're seeing this trend
Yeah.
in expenses, especially in salary expenses, but we're not seeing that same trend line for revenue. And
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I
You
say,
just
who do you know that gets a double-digit raise, you know? I don't
Other
think many people do.
That's being standardized across these contracts.
For the,
Because we're doing
heating and oil, can you just read me the 19 actual?
richer than we would have approved.
37,908,
Match those when I do the fire
right,
and police.
.48.
let's just do one conversation at a time. No, it's okay. Sorry, go ahead, Mel.
I was just the heating and oil, that was in 2019 was well below the budgeted as well.
The warm winter.
Is that, yeah, so
Yep.
what's it say, 37? Okay.
And they did drop it down by
Yeah.
$12,000.
I was just making sure that it was not just chose to drop that down because they know they're gonna keep paying their utilities regardless of what their budget is, but it does look like it's been historically lower than, the
But to
budgeted
your
amount.
point, I guess, and to the point that we keep making is, if all of these contractuals, right, we have to pay the contractuals, right? And if this keeps happening, but we don't have that increase in revenue, there's not gonna be anything left
Right,
to
okay.
operate.
right.
Or they're gonna keep digging in lower and lower, and it's like, at what point does it not work anymore? And I, to the point, we're all private sector. Where do you see those kind of increases in the private sector? You don't.
Just in our tax bill.
Yeah,
So, and heating and oil and gas, let's face it, that's going up
absolutely.
significantly.
But they're
So we're
still-
dropping it down $12,000.
but
We're back at the
it's
contingency.
still-
So did we have too much room in there to begin with?
It looks like we did based on
A couple
I
years.
think we
yeah.
the
did,
last couple
now
of
we
years.
don't.
Right.
But that was my question, because if we hadn't, then you can't just drop it just to.
Well, yeah, because it's still,
make
the
room.
53 is more than the actuals for the last 2
Right.
years, but it's not as much as what was
But-
budgeted.
And to the point of like the private sector, like, no, you don't get 12% raises, that doesn't happen, but people do leave jobs to go to other jobs where they will make 12% more than what they did at the old job because they were underpaid, so.
And private companies do look at market adjustments based
Absolutely.
on how job descriptions change. And,
Yep.
we reevaluate every year based on certain data that we look at.
Absolutely. And they have the ability to do what we don't have the ability to do, is they have the ability to bonus in lieu of, which a lot of private sectors use that as a tactic to not
Yeah,
increase
we
the
can't
base. And we can't do that.
incentivize
We
like
can't,
you could in
yeah.
private sector. So, and then the other, the county retirement plan, like at that level is 11% from the employee, which is often forgotten. So,
But we have, the conundrum of how do, you can't make it work all the time. And again, especially in a year like this year, it's a tough message. How are we going to cut and how are we going to squeeze it in? And we're handing out,
And it's not
I
this
use the
year.
we, I use the we very loosely.
Where are we at the prelim revenues? Like, how much are we projecting to be down?
Brian, so projections as of today on the revenue and where we are with the numbers today, we're 2, 3, but we haven't even put capital in yet?
Yeah,
Or
that's
article.
correct.
So about
2.3.
$200,000 to $300,000 in deficit, but without capital, without articles,
and without increased staffing.
without increased staffing. I actually meant to ask Melissa about health insurance, so.
Yeah.
But we're
I gotta-
379 prior to, based on the numbers we have today, not including what we've changed
My belly
already,
doesn't move.
plus whatever Paul's increase in staffing would be, so we're roughly about 420 to 450
And
in the
that's
hole.
before capital and before articles. And again, we talked about, our willingness, if we're ever going to dip into stabilization, this is the year to do it, and we just, put money into stabilization. I just think we have to be
Is there any
careful.
indication though, for capital items and things like that, do we have any idea on free cash end of year that will be transferred?
Free cash, we already counted the free cash because we had the special town meeting. So there was a little bit of tailing on the free cash, about 250, and I figure we're going to use that against the snow and ice deficit. So we'll wipe that out, so not carry it forward. So there's no additional free cash expected at this time. So it's just going to be based on, going into the stabilization fund. You'll remember at the special town meeting, we put in 1.6
Right.
back into stabilization because we didn't appropriate. So obviously that's available. We'd have to vote it out of stabilization to do it, but it's there to cover your budget and cover the capital requests. And that was our intent. But and Laura and I have been, talking about this for ad nauseum, but you don't want to take more out of the stabilization account to supplement the budget than you can reasonably expect will be made up in additional state aid and/or new growth
Right, because you're
in
drawing
the
a
following
new baseline
years.
at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's the only restriction we have, is our own restriction. You can decide, or town meeting can decide to take more, that's up to town meeting, but the recommendation of the finance committee should be based on some sort of reality.
Right.
We've heard it before from, in the last maybe 2 or 3 years ago, from, at town meeting brought up to bring down, we had 5 years of reserves, why don't we have 4? And it's like, well, that helps for 1 year, but then after that, where are you getting that money? You spend
And
it
then
in that
what
year, you're
happens,
not-
right, and then next year, so Brian, gives the whole spiel about how the state has balanced their budget this year.
Right.
Right? And it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, basically.
Yeah.
So that's not sustainable, and that's going to need to be corrected. And it may, we thought maybe it was gonna be this year, okay, it's not this year.
Right.
It just can't, the cycle can't keep going,
Right.
right?
We're seeing that in a lot of like our private businesses, and we have so many businesses that had record years this year. It's like, but this isn't, there's gotta be the shoe's gotta fall. Like, this isn't
Right.
sustainable.
And at some point, like, people start to look at you funny, you're like, boy, aren't you guys like the negative people in the world,
Oh, I get
But-
that.
Oh, we do,
Get that.
Everyone thinks it's,
We're having-
kumbaya, this is gonna be awesome, these things are
know what to
wonderful,
tell the
let me put in
clients,
a
'cause they're like-
14% increase, And I think we need to be very thoughtful about how that's gonna carry forward. Yeah. So, one of the things that I started to do, because I feel like we're having this discussion a lot lately, is I started it and I didn't get, and we haven't even finished this, but I'll just jump over kind of quickly. I started to just I wanted to do like a quick, like this is a quick 20-minute analysis. And I started to look at it this way. I started to look at it this way. and this is all personnel services subtotals for each department, just again to get the visual of how it's looking. And then I said, well, you know, you can't really do it that way because so much stuff is like buried, because like if this line item gets a big bump, they'll kind of steal it from this line item. So, you know, I will also be doing it a little more in-depth. I didn't get very far, just to kind of be doing it almost kind of by, I don't want to say by position, but in some instances, like the department heads, or if, you know, there's like a top 1 and 2 type of thing. Because I think we need to, I feel that there's a little disjointedness between the reality of the revenue and what's getting sent out the door, whether it be in the contracts or requests coming in, and it's like, how do we help the folks who are doing that understand the effects of it, you know, because if we have this disjointedness, our jobs are going to just be really hard over the next couple of years.
Right, because we can't address it year to year because these contracts are 3 years long. It needs to be addressed.
The start of
when
it.
the contract is renewed.
And I don't know how you guys feel about it. I feel very frustrated by it because we're being asked to solve the problem.
But we have no say in
We
that.
have no ability to help on the other end. And I think it's very frustrating. It's frustrating for me personally, but I think, you know, and I don't know how to solve, I don't know how to go forward other than constant conversations. So, you know, I want to kind of, if everyone can brainstorm a little, you know, I thought, you know, I kind of do this for myself just to kind of, what does it show? What are the trends? And it's a little all over the place.
You've got to just call it what it is. It's contract negotiations, what comes out of those, what we're obligated to, how many people can we staff. This whole process goes back into the 1960s, okay? People want to get paid what they would get paid in the private sector, but when this was set up in the 1960s, what happened was usually municipal employees and federal employees, et cetera, got paid less because they had much, and they made it up for in benefits. The market's changed. They're getting very paid competitively to the private sector now, but the benefits component hasn't changed. We don't see COLA adjustments, we don't see longevity pay, we don't see that. So the people who are paying the taxes gotta understand that. And it's time to normalize things, you know, I mean, this conversation's been going on for years. And, you know, when I started getting involved in '96, this was still a hot topic. And people always had a craw about all those things, you know, longevity pay, this pay, that pay, you get this degree, you get this, you get this. You know, and it's just like the legislature. I mean, they're not gonna change their pension package. They have to vote on changing their benefits, they're not gonna change them. So it comes down to negotiations at the table and trying to be realistic. You're right, we can't sustain this. And probably I'm speaking like this because I saw my tax bill today. My wife usually hides it from me. Let me tell you.
I know.
Compared to what it was and where it is now,
Yep.
it's not pretty.
Are you comparing the estimated against the actual, though?
Whatever
Oh, no, the
green
actual's
paper's
high.
sitting on my desk, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
it's,
when they come in and they show us their budgets and it's all to salary and we can't, you know, they barely have enough money to get.
Copy paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that, you know.
And I don't, and it's funny, I don't want to, you know, because being in the private sector, right, we have, for the most part, companies, we put in great processes, Dan. So whether it be market, you know, we do, you know, reviews and we do market adjustments and we have bonus programs that are based on a lot of great data and a lot of great programs or, you know, whatever it is we do in whatever industry. And I just feel like this is a little bit of an archaic kind of.
It's old. It's
It's
an
an
old
archaic system, and it's at the whim of, you know, not, I don't want to sound disrespectful and all, but it's at the whim of whoever's sitting in the seat that year, a little bit. And I know that's not necessarily the case, so I don't take offense.
Brian agrees because we're behind the times. Now we're gonna appoint the town clerk and we're gonna reset salaries, right?
But I think it's,
No, it should be looked at, and that would be the Board of Selectmen having some conversations with the department heads and talking about what the contracts should look like. But you always have the past precedents that kills you.
well, but there has to be, and I think we have done a lot of great things with some of the new contracts. I think they've kind of started to really,
Trying to, I mean, first of all, collective bargaining agreements take years to change the course of, Dave.
Oh, I know that. That's why I'm not a
The
selectman
personal
anymore. My heart
contracts
can't
are
take it.
hard to change and take things away from people. People who've earned 6 weeks vacation and I buy them back to 4 weeks. Because I'm trying to come up with a standardization. We have, and I am talking out of school, but we have a sick leave buyback at the end of somebody's useful life, which is, it took me a little while to understand that this basically is an earned short-term disability package. And it took like 10 years for the average employee to get to 120 days, and not being sick for 10 years.
I know, it's
It might be
mind-boggling.
cheaper for us to buy a short-term disability policy than it is to fund this 120 days.
Especially when people intentionally don't use it, so it is that big payday at the end. And you
Yeah.
don't see that in private industry.
I mean, there's
At all.
other
Yeah.
companies will buy out the sick time that accrues in that year. Because when you're letting somebody accrue a period of time over 10 years, the day became more valuable at the end of 10 years than it did at the beginning of 10 years. So would you be better off buying out unused sick time annually?
Yes.
So those are the things that we need to look at on a much more, but you have to be a little bit respectful of the people who've earned it. You can't just take it away.
Yeah.
You have to pay for it to
Right.
get it out of the system. And then the other thing that we have, which is in the personnel bylaw, is the 5% kick, which I don't understand at all, and I've never seen anything like it.
Still has
That
questions.
has-
555.
Still has questions.
That has got to be sunsetted.
Yeah, and like I said, I feel like we're in a tough position because, like I said, we have to do it, but we have to make this work. And we have to make it work and then give the recommendation, but I don't know. So if anybody has any really brilliant ideas,
I'll let you know.
any thoughts?
Lemonade stand.
I mean, I know it's a touch, and I don't want it to be, and this is where it gets uncomfortable for us, because I don't want it to be about anybody. I don't want it to be about any person. It needs to be a systematic issue that's looked at. But I think there needs to be much more
What ultimately
cohesion.
will happen is what happened to the police department. We had 26 folks at one point in time, and now we have, 21 or 22? So, and now we're faced with the question about, will be coming up, what do? We need more officers, we have X amount of calls. It's a cycle, and we're a little bit better this year than we thought we were gonna be, but we may have to dip into the stabilization fund, and who knows about the year after? We're bound for a downswing. There will be some reduction in state aid at some point in time, because they can't continue.
I agree. All right. So I'm not quite sure how we want to approach any of these in particulars. If we want to, again, table it and we'll come back if we have to, but let's get through this part and then we can look at the departments kind of as a whole. Oh, I'm not putting you on the spot, Melissa, but, but I am.
I look forward-
Do you have a time frame of when we think we'll have a final health
Got the
insurance?
rate, well, we didn't get them today. The rates were set today, the
Okay.
meeting. So I asked for them. I didn't receive them in the email yet. I'm hoping to have them tomorrow.
Oh,
He
great.
said, on average, they didn't lie, it averages out about 5.8%. But for example, Always Health went up between 11 and 12%.
Okay. So once you
We only
get
have
the rates
27
and you
people on
do
that.
your math.
So as soon as I can get the rate sheet, I'm going to use the most current, because I always use a bill with the actual number of people, because it fluctuates. We'll put the bill in, and because we count the number of people and everything.
Okay,
And I'll do
so
that whole sheet
you'll do
again,
the
just
census
throw in
and
the
then have a
numbers
number. So probably by mid-next week
Yeah, yeah.
sometime, hopefully?
Yeah,
Okay,
yep, as long as he gets me those rates.
great.
I think she's conservative. I'm betting our number's gonna be higher.
That her all-in number's gonna be higher?
Yeah,
I'd be happy if it was 5.8%.
we'll see. It's too early to speculate.
Yeah. We lucked out last year, I'm not sure, again, how long is your luck gonna hold out?
Whistle past the graveyard.
So, actually, so two things. So, civilian dispatchers, so,
We go there.
Yep.
The townwide electricity, we're on track to spend 820,000. We have 976 in there. Could that be brought down 100 grand?
what line number are you on, do you know?
I see it on mine as 316.
Let me look.
Townwide
Did I go by it?
electricity.
Yep, I did. 316.
Townwide electricity.
It's through December, it's 409, at least on this one here I'm looking at. I can't see that.
I just think I would be hesitant to cut electricity. Brian's got an
So
updated
as
report.
of today, we have spent 628,739. So I would say at the moment, I don't think I'd bring it down.
But that's through February?
That's through today.
So, yeah,
Yes,
so call it February.
Last
Yeah.
month.
So Melanie's annualizing it, I can see it. in her head.
Yeah, 942.
9.
The interesting thing,
So,
you would
yeah.
have thought that the electric bill in the schools would have dropped.
Yeah, they
And it
explained
went
that
up.
pretty well too,
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
they're keeping windows wide open and running.
Well, and they have to
air
run the
system.
HVAC.
How are we
yeah.
buying our electricity? We buying it in blocks or what are we doing?
We have the most confusing electricity contracts I've ever seen in my life, and we actually hired a consultant to help us, and God help us if he gets too old and wants to retire, because we have this, we were very early on jumping into the solar, the selling of the credits and all that kind of stuff. And it's very confusing to me, and thank goodness we have this consultant because he makes it easy, but we basically had 20% of our electrical costs reduced because of the energy credits we get from the solar farm. So I think we're doing pretty good, and we have exercised some of the credits offered by the utilities to do electrical improvements, as we, have talked about in the past. So I think at the moment, we're doing the best we can.
Right, but besides those reductions, what
Yeah.
are we doing for per kilowatt hour price? Are we buying blocks? Are we buying off-peak hours, on-peak hours?
It depends upon the usage. So I would have to I'll have to pull the bills, because I got 4 different rates.
So aside from, those credits are gonna become a lot more valuable in a couple more years because the industry has to have a clean carbon footprint. So those will become more valuable, but it would be real good for us to understand what are we doing with the energy. You mentioned in the last meeting we were at that the solar was down for 3 months, they didn't get here, et cetera, all that stuff. But also, I know there's a couple of people in town here who are very well versed in energy, and to have a conversation about how we're buying our electrical power would be very, very helpful. Maybe that consultant can help us.
Maybe there's a subcommittee in the future, or a committee.
Well, I mean,
I'd be delighted to bring
I
him
mean,
in
if-
because he's
yeah.
fascinating,
That's
and
awesome.
he lives in Maine. And when we could travel again and do that, I will ask him to come down and.
well, I'll be up there in April, I'll bring him back down if.
I gotta tell you, the guy is brilliant, and at first I was very deeply, what's this and why is this? And after meeting with him, watching what he does, how he does it, I'm impressed. So,
Passionate about energy.
he's
Dave,
passionate.
you can head up the subcommittee. I nominate Dave.
Well, I used to buy it, so,
And if you can get residents any kind of a deal too, that would be helpful. My neighbor's putting solar on today.
I put solar on.
I haven't yet.
I will say, like, when we run the pellet stove in the winter, it's nice when I have the, kind of the offset, but.
All right, so, okay, the electricity, okay, police and dispatch. So, we had a little sidebar meeting to talk about dispatch a little bit, because I was a little concerned about the increase. I mean, I kind of knew what the story was, but I wanted to have a little bit more of a frank discussion. So Dan and I actually met with them to kind of do this. Bottom line is it was underestimated at the inception of the program. I think initially it was planned for 5 full-time and 3 part-time folks. And they, they even at the time speculated, we think we can get away with this in the evenings, but, we'll have to see. And it just wasn't doable between having the police and the fire up there and the number of calls that they were having. They had to have more people and the 2 people for more. So they ultimately changed the staffing model to 7 full-time folks. And I can't remember if they said any part-time on top of that.
Thought there was one.
Maybe 1, yeah. But that did change the model. And now that they've had the experience, they know kind of what the model is and and how it works. So that's why we're seeing, in my mind, a pretty substantial increase in that staffing. So we did go through that with them. Made sense to me. Dan, anything you'd add to it?
No, it made sense. It's helped
Yeah.
the fire, their staffing.
Yep. The one thing I actually, and Brian, this is actually a question for you. I highlighted this line because I'm just kind of going back and looking at history a little bit more. So
Which line?
I don't know so I'm in police, civilian dispatches.
Civilian dispatch, yeah.
And I don't know if this was, I don't know if I messed this up.
I took the money that was in the other budgets, put them back into this one for comparison sakes,
Okay,
and took it out of the other budgets. Remember, Tim had counted it, and I had to have him back that out?
yeah,
So this is those monies backed out. So the
Okay.
FY '21 appropriation,
because they both, so I guess my question in police more than fire, because fire, he had it embedded, I know we fixed that. So police have always had civilian dispatchers, and so in their line item for like 19, 20, we started taking it out in 21 when they formed central dispatch. But I'm almost, so it kind of skews it a little bit, especially, if we do a deep analysis, which we're not really looking at it right now, because we still have that historic embedded in the police department, which I think is probably appropriate to leave there.
yeah.
Yeah, it just, something we have to kind of pay attention to.
But it's also, one of the things that Central Civilian Dispatch did is we used to be able to cover the police dispatch with policemen.
Yeah,
Well, we can't do that because the fire police dispatch is more complex, and so that's more, you didn't see the police officer's salary in dispatch, you saw that in the police officer's salary. So,
Oh, so
Yeah.
the
Right.
coverage
So now
isn't
it's-
accurate, okay.
right. So, any other questions in central dispatch? I know it's, it kind of is what it is. And it seems to be, they are at a good, comfortable level. It seems to be working. The other part that we discussed that I brought up is that because they changed the staffing model kind of at the get-go of 7/1 of '20, they are, I said, well, I assume you're running a deficit then this year because we only budgeted, this 281. And if you change the model right out of the gate, that would change. So they've looked at it, Brian's looked at it, and we are probably going to be running about, I think you said a $40,000 deficit, which they're hoping they'll be able to just cover, is the hope. So,
well, we'll have to use other town accounts to move into there, but we can do that in May and June. And then short of that, if I can't do it, I have to come back to the finance committee for a transfer.
so be on the lookout there, and that was my same question. I just highlighted the line.
For down personnel, then it's good that they have the dispatch. to
Yeah.
cover that, so.
Yeah. I don't know if these are my questions or you. I think they might have been some of your questions. Yeah,
I think
maybe.
they were just both that it's not being spent. training and education and in-state mileage. 3
Yes,
years in a row.
yep, and I had a
It was
question.
taken out, the training education of the level funded, but not the level service.
Right. Dave, are you building? You're building, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I apparently must have been asleep at that point. Maybe, Dave, maybe you can go back and ask them these questions. So they basically didn't spend for training and education and in-state travel mileage. They haven't spent anything. I mean, 20, they spent $7.99. I actually have a column hidden here. Dan, do you have your column unhidden? Do you have the 20 spend? I mean, 21?
They used to have a vehicle.
They didn't spend anything.
Okay.
You know, building and planning used to have a vehicle, and then, because before Dave had building and planning, I had them. And then Patrick then went to the in-state mileage. They got rid of the vehicle.
But they haven't spent anything in in-state mileage either.
Because to his credit, he doesn't file for it.
Patrick.
Eh, that's a him issue.
Don't start now.
And then I think I probably highlighted this line, because again, we're seeing a 9% increase. But is that,
No, that's because we moved,
but I moved the entire line over, so
Okay,
it's still an
yeah.
increase.
but they
We're going-
upgraded the position to administrative assistant from senior clerk.
Is that the Dottie position? So she retired, and now she's making more money?
No, Dottie was coming back part-time, wasn't she?
She's not in the building department, she's in the planning and
So
zoning.
this is a new, so,
This is
That's her replacement?
This is
Ellen.
Ellen. All of the salaries used to be on the planning side.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to
I remember now. looking
apply
at-
the costs to the
Still
right
9%.
departments. So the clerical
Oh,
salaries got
Lisa's
moved
not
into the
assistant
building.
But, okay.
So Ellen stepped into essentially Dot's old position, right?
I'm sorry?
Ellen stepped into Dot's old position.
No, she's still in the building side, but her position was re-rated up to administrative assistant.
okay, bottom line is it's still a 9% increase.
Fair enough.
It is what it is, okay. Rolling along. I don't know if anybody attended the meeting last night, the public hearing.
No, it was
On the
personnel
school.
committee.
I did watch it briefly on rerun today. So they did their budget, their public hearing on the school budget. Went well. Didn't look like there was a lot of people in the audience. But at least it's the number we've been looking at, and they gave kudos to everybody, including the finance committee. So that was great.
This has been a good year,
It has been.
knock wood.
School years haven't been too.
All right, so, okay, so I highlighted all of snow. Again, this is just one of those,
Dan, you can take
I just
this
did the whole thing. So again, this is one of those areas that, again, you know, we have, I don't want to, we're aiming to build it back up to reality. However, should we have our backs against the wall, we have the ability to move that around, so I just highlighted the whole thing.
I think you told them this year being the year that it is, we're like, maybe you don't want to increase it that much this year.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, though, you gotta.
Eventually, yeah, we should.
You might need to take it away next year.
Okay, what was my question here? Okay, so I think this was just a piddly question, and so it really, it was more of a huh? So my question was just vacation buyback, I thought should be consistent between the two budgets, and it's not, and it's a $25 difference. But it's just more of a, I just wanted to make sure I had the right number or something. And again, I was just highlighting this more for the whole salary discussion part of things again. I couldn't remember what the answer on the inspector salaries was.
And that's vacation buyback, and is that in this line? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's like not a big deal. It's $25.
Yeah,
It was
no,
more of a,
And then this was his first year doing it, because he
Yep.
was so busy, so I know he was kind of,
yep. And then, Dave, to your point, I don't know why, let's see. Oh, because this electricity line went down for sewer treatment, and again, I couldn't remember if we questioned that. Because I think, again, we were like,
We did some electrical savings projects there.
Okay. And down's good, but makes me nervous. Yep. Okay, so library salaries, the only reason I highlighted it is because when Chris did his presentation to us, the library trustees had already voted on their COLA, if you will, and they voted a 1% increase for the non-union contract employees. The board, right around that time, or like a week before, voted a 1.5%. I think it's 1.5, right?
there's trust.
We are supposed to be 1.5, they only voted
They
1.
voted 1, so they went back and they had to change it from 1 to
Oh, they did-
1.5.
They did change it.
Yeah. So he submitted some new numbers, but I still didn't get the sense that he was 100% sure he needed to, but I think the answer is yes, you need to. So I went ahead and just plugged the new numbers in. So obviously, it increased that salary line item, and then the difference had to come out of supplies and books, and that's the budget. Those are the numbers that he gave me. So those are kind of like updated based on that. And I think that was it. That was it for highlights and questions. So if we want to this just gives us the snapshot of just seeing the data kind of condensed by line item. You know, and
Moderator is passing it to Pam.
Not the year, Kevin.
speaking from the guy that gets nothing to be on the FinCom. Why, are you running for moderator soon?
Party. You can't even get our Chromebooks.
No, I didn't give me
about that.
Chromebooks, sorry.
But this just kind of gives us the snapshot of what the departments look like, you know, and some of the scary red numbers are obviously small dollars, which is why they went up as high as they did, but, you know, I think it's to the point of like, are there any departments where, you know, other than the ones we've talked about, or in general, in aggregate, that we have some concerns around? You know, I think we have to start having that discussion. Or do we want to, at our next meeting, you want, again, I send you another copy, we can digest what we've gone through tonight and come back. I think we're what, the end of, we have the school next week, next Thursday.
In person? Is it-
Actually, we set it up as a virtual. How does everybody feel about
We
that?
could change that.
You can change it or keep it virtual.
You ever see me like this, or you see me with a hoodie?
It would be this room with 5 or 6 more people in it. Or we could meet in the auditorium.
How do
if
you
want
feel?
to spread out even
I
further.
mean, if
Virtual?
I've still got like this space, I'm comfortable.
If you get a perimeter,
Yeah.
we can get some glass shields.
Bubble around
If I
you.
can still get my bubble over
We can give you
here.
a box.
I also have no problem with creating it so you can dial in.
Yeah.
I obviously like being here and in person. I'm just
Well, we like
obviously
that.
waiting.
I know. Well,
I see Harper like on screen sometimes, and I'm like, can you just nod right now?
I lock myself in the basement when I'm at home.
I was
It
on
was
that
fine.
meeting with you the other day, and nobody saw the cat go right by the screen. I was like, oh my God.
Cattail.
Yeah, exact cat butt. So I don't know how you guys want to start the approach of, you know, if we want to do it this week. So we have school next week, and then, you know, we'll have some more numbers. We'll have health insurance, we'll have a couple other things locked down.
I think we need to have the full picture. before
Yeah.
We start.
Start
Yeah.
picking
Do you have
apart
a
things.
column in there for dollar increase?
Yeah, no.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, just because then you could weed out the ones that's like.
Level
10%
service
when it's
increases.
$40.
Well, okay, so the grand total, the
One
increase
more
is $1,004,000.
Because like you said, sometimes it's a high percent, but it's a very low dollar amount.
There you go.
Thank you.
That was so fast.
She's
The
awesome.
chair.
Could we get,
Oops, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
There's a number missing there.
Like, wow, what
Like,
happened?
that's so not right.
We're just gonna wing
I'll
it.
just leave that alone, I won't mess it up. This isn't even the real
Could we get
spreadsheet,
a
this is just
listing
mine.
of what's falling off of debt services over the next?
Yeah, you can see it right there.
2 years?
Oh, yeah, I can do that, yes.
Yeah, I have-
Actually, we're gonna have
I
a-
have debt services listed out till 2030.
36.
Oh, wow, look at you.
So
Yeah.
it shows each one that, like, here it is this year, and
But it's gonna
Next
change in
year's
April,
zero.
so why don't, I can give you the sheet now, but we're gonna change it massively in April, because we're refinancing, we're refinancing the school,
no,
the
that doesn't
senior
extend the
center.
school. It still ends in 10
They'll
years.
just change the dollar
That
amount.
still ends at 31. But we're gonna refinance and we're saving $400,000 a year or $4 million.
Nice.
Yeah,
So-
That's the
huge.
next trip.
But
We
it'd
don't
be
know
good to
till we
see
sell
what's
the bonds.
falling off still.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, we can tell you.
Yeah, I'd like to.
The interesting thing is in the long-term
I'll send you the-
financial plan, we were criticized for not having enough debt.
I know.
So, so I'm glad you mentioned that. So the Collins Center did, through a grant, I think it was through a grant, a long-term, and they just presented, not quite the final, but he's still tweaking it this week. So it's something that's in the works and working on, and I think it's going to be helpful. I don't think it's going to be the end-all, be-all by any means, but it's helpful. And then actually something that came out of it, and I was looking at you, Dan, because you had asked for it, and we had talked about it a little bit. Another thing that would be helpful, and I think it would be incredibly helpful for it to live in this tool also, would be a schedule of all the collective bargaining agreements and the dates. And I know you had asked about that.
I have that list.
Yeah, and I think that would.
Sure.
I think it would be great to live in that document too, as
I
a
even
tool.
have department head contracts, and I can even give you a spreadsheet on their contracts as they go forward,
That would be awesome.
which I have, so I could definitely share that.
That would be great. And actually, that might even help us with our other conversation too, on the salaries and stuff, but,
No, just make you madder.
true. Okay, anyway. I digress. So here's, the variance, and we can kind of see where the ups and the downs, mostly ups.
Some of the reds, I feel like maybe you could change to like
Pink.
a yellow or something.
A little softer color.
Like
I know,
the ones
I'm a hardcore red and green, no, I can soften it.
The 3.9%, but it's $245.
I know.
Like stuff like that.
I know, so some of the small departments get butchered because of their size, yeah.
We're big on the red, yellow, and green at my office.
I had to do a 20-minute refresher on how to do conditional formatting, so I'm like, I haven't done it in so long. So I was like, oh, I gotta refresh. Okay, so let's do that then. We'll do the school next week. Do we even need to meet? We don't need to meet additionally to that one. We'll just do the school. And then I think we should plan on, then, I'm jumping around here, because we're talking about next meetings already. So next 11th, so then
Capital budget.
we'll schedule a meeting for the next week. I'm not sure it'll be Tuesday.
Just a capital
Kevin, which
meeting.
day do you want the next meeting?
I know. Well, Tuesday's my birthday, so
No, you're
please
the
go easy.
Sure you want to be here.
So I do not want to be here.
What's that, the 16th?
16th.
That's my mom's
I
birthday
think-
too.
Oh, is it?
I
The
think
16th's a very crowded night.
Yeah, we've got personnel.
Yeah, I got a
board.
birthday cake.
I got
day.
personnel and capital budget, so that's out.
Okay, so it's not going to be Tuesday, let's just say that. So,
Not gonna be Wednesday.
not going to be
Bringing
Wednesday?
corned beef and cabbage.
Oh,
Yeah. So the
Dave's
next
got a prior commitment.
opportunity would be the
Thursday.
18th, the Thursday.
Kevin, are you free on Thursday, the 18th? I keep trying to give Kevin first shot.
But you see, the idea would, I think you're coming down to the point where I'm gonna need decisions.
Yeah,
Do
So-
Wanna do-
Huh?
Can we do that Monday? or
Monday?
is it-
Monday is that?
Monday, the 22nd,
Fo-
No, I was. like,
15th.
the 15th?
Ides of March.
I'm looking. I can't get my calendar to cooperate.
Pressure.
Yes.
So the 18th, the 17th, I'm having my
Your
surgery, so I don't know.
So Monday looks like it would probably work.
I'd appreciate it. I mean, I'll show up. I don't know how I'll show up, but
You could always do remote.
I could be remote.
Yeah.
You can be live with Crystal, you know?
Well, they happen the 5th. So they must have it
I'm
the
like, approve
22nd.
everybody. Give it all.
Board, it's not a selectmen's
So they
night.
must have it the 8th.
Board of
or
Health and Planning.
22nd.
Yeah, they have it on the 8th.
So the 15th.
Yeah, so
not
15th
a
is
Board of
fine, I
Selectmen.
think.
No, it's up to planning.
Oh, you're
Does
planning.
that work for you, Kevin? No?
No, Kevin's got planning.
Sorry, guy.
Is there another town meeting?
Can we do, how early can everybody do? Because like, could we do it early before your meeting? Make you just be here all night?
What time is
I mean, if you're gonna be here, you might as well. Huh?
But they meet here.
But if we did it like before,
Oh, yeah, I don't care.
What time is the
I can be
planning
here at
meeting?
there at 7,
What day are we talking about? I'm sorry.
15th.
15th?
I can be here as early as 3:30.
4:35.
Dave, you're not retired yet, right?
Yes, I am.
Oh, congratulations.
Is that why you look so calm over there?
I know, really. He has like a, that's why he's planning on having a good corned beef and cabbage dinner on St. Patrick's Day.
That's why the 17th.
Yeah.
Got it.
So you're available.
Yep.
Excellent. What about you?
Mine would be like, unless I can talk to my sister to get Bailey. It does, I never know when my husband gets home.
Yeah,
So it's like whether there's someone there to watch the kid or not.
yeah. And I mean, we can do a dial-in option for you too.
Yeah, and I could try to plan, so what day was that, the 15th?
15th, Monday the 15th?
I could try to make like arrangements too, if that's the case, so yeah.
I mean, if we could do, I mean,
5:30, 5?
5 or 5:30, I would say 5 maybe to give us
A little leeway.
some breathing room.
Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah?
As long as Kevin doesn't mind being.
Yeah, no, Kevin's gonna, you're gonna have to pack a sandwich.
It's a busy night for you. Dress comfortably.
I'll get you some cheese naps.
Do we get snacks at that meeting?
Okay, so what did I just say, 5 PM? Okay, so, so we still need to decide what we want to do about the school meeting, if we want to do in-person or virtual. Do you want to keep it?
Might as well just keep it.
I mean, is
Virtual?
it easier for Liz? She can be at home.
Oh, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. It's all
I mean, I'll
right.
ask her, but, and if we want to go virtual, if you're concerned about this size of this room, we could probably meet at the school,
In the auditorium.
in the auditorium.
I think we could ask them what their,
Yeah, let me go to
Because
bed.
But
Would you
let-
like me
let
to do it, or you
Let
do
me
it?
ask Liz.
Fantastic.
that's Liz and John usually.
That's the
Less I
chair.
have to do, the better.
I almost ran her over in the parking lot the other day.
Wow.
I need to apologize.
That's how you're gonna start that.
Finance committee chair hits.
I know, right?
I didn't really
Way to
almost
bring
run
the
her over. I
drama
waved her on.
And then rub your
And then revved it, yeah, no. Okay, so we'll ask about that, and then Monday, the 5th, we'll do in person. And that will be kind of our, Monday the 15th, yep. And that will be kind of our, we need to go through and make kind of some decisions. And I'll get, obviously, next week, we'll get you some documents that are updated and what kind of the bottom line number looks like a little bit. Because we need to, when are you closing the warrant?
Warrant's closed.
Okay.
When am I printing it? The
Okay, when are you printing the warrant?
9th,
Of April.
April.
So when will you have something for us to look at about other articles?
Probably the same night we meet with the schools, I would imagine.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm waiting for, there might be a space holder for a building code change. I think I've got most everything else.
okay.
This town meeting?
It's a pretty light agenda, actually.
May
May 10th.
10th?
How much dollar-wise, roughly?
In the capital articles,
Well, in anything.
was nothing, I mean, the capital is where most of the issues
And then
are.
Other than that, there's,
Other than that, there's nothing.
So no other money articles?
For money yet.
Yet, just capital.
I mean, one of the problems you could have is somebody might not like the answer from capital. It could,
Then put an article in.
yeah.
And capital's meeting on the 16th. Oh, that stinks. Day after.
Well,
that's fine.
I gotta tell you that there's been a really good team effort about, being conservative and careful, and I think it's
So-
gonna pay dividends.
So we won't really know where capital stands by the time we meet on the 15th. I mean, maybe we can get,
I mean, I can tell you what's listed on capital, delighted to tell you what's been presented as a
yeah,
request.
I've got that here too.
And then you could sort of look at it and say, this'll never go, or that might go, or, you know.
I already did my own list, so.
That's another tab.
I didn't put it in there. No, I did it on a separate, I didn't dare put it in, that would be very presumptuous of me. All right, well, I'll look at the schedule because we'll have to book the 15th and then we're going to have to do at least 2, if not 3 more meetings after that because we've got to get everything really tied up by like the end of March, I think is the date we said,
You could go into the first week of April, no problem.
maybe, yeah.
And I did build myself a little cushion, but I'd rather
Okay.
not use it if I didn't have to.
All right. Okay.
Well, April 10th, Vegas, baby.
Nice.
You're traveling, huh?
Baby, baby.
Cut down,
Yeah,
that's gonna
really.
be the next hot spot.
My shot.
So we really need to get you all done before April 10th, because then you're gone. And
If he
you're
wins
gonna.
big, then he's not coming back.
Because he prints on the 9th, right?
Because what?
He prints on the 9th, right?
Yeah. So as long as we don't go too far into that first week. But we're gonna have to, wrap all of this up to the penny, and then, well, it's good if there's not a lot of articles then, because that's less,
I'm not overwhelmed with them. I'm
which is good, because
very
that usually
impressed.
is what takes us
Once
so
I've screwed
long.
up badly.
Yeah. And is there a special too? There's a special, right?
We always do a special
Special.
and an annual. We don't have to anymore, but personally, I like it because you know that the special is in that fiscal year and the annual's for the next fiscal year. You never have this confusion, so makes the moderator crazy, but
Is that marijuana facility interested
it's
in?
on the agenda.
Good.
That's so funny. Everybody's asking about that all of a sudden.
Money.
I mean, there's supposed to be a planning board hearing on that. Yeah, I'm not sure when they've scheduled it, but it has to be a planning board hearing. And then the Board of Selectmen will certainly have to weigh in. And that'll probably be the second most
Take one of each
controversial
and pass
thing
it
on the, most controversial will be the,
Huh? Oh, you did one?
if I don't get to
I'll take
sell
yours
the
back. You have to
Gladys
do it for this
Farron
too.
Cottage, it's gonna be the demolition.
Assume so.
Do I hand these in too? No.
If Kevin's on 2 committees, this is the conflict of interest, does he have to do one for each committee?
Yes.
Now you have to sign your life away.
So this is just our annual conflict of interest. If you want to take it,
Sorry? You don't have to do it if you serve on another committee representing the finance committee. Like, for example, you represent
oh,
the
that was, you're
finance
right, that was the personnel board. I did
on the
that.
personnel board, so therefore you only have to fill out one. Kevin has 2 appointments, so he has to fill out 2.
So you technically should have done it for us, not them.
Okay.
Correct.
Did I do, I don't know.
Did you
You
fill it
only
in
have to
as
do it
personnel?
once for representation.
I want to
Just do another one.
I'll just do another one, whatever. Throw it away, shred it, I don't know.
So I was gonna say, you could either take it home and really read through it and then bring it
You all
back.
do your ethics test?
No? That's only every couple years.
Every 2 years.
2 years.
That's 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
Oh, clearly I didn't do that.
I'm pretty sure I had to do it, I don't even remember.
Kind of like, kind of small too.
All right. Okay.
I really need those rates tomorrow. Because I need to do that.
I'll call him if he doesn't use it.
Yeah, I'm gonna,
Let me do it right now.
I need them.
Make a motion
I'll have
to
to get-
adjourn
I-
and give the people at home a break.
I have a-
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
No, thank you.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting called at
Approve the
8:21.
meeting minutes?